Hey, it's Jacob, welcome to this new video. Today I want to talk about the 4 programming myths that are keeping you from growing. A lot of people like to talk about programming without really knowing what they are talking about. This tendency gives credit to false beliefs that are either limiting or leading us astray. So let's start with the first one. We need to be good at math. So this one is completely wrong. Mainly the educational system is to blame for this. We're taught programming to solve equations or mathematical puzzles which we don't need in the real world. It just goes to show how much the educational system can be not just useless but also harmful. But that's all I'm going to say about this because I made a whole video about it. You can click on it right now if you want to watch it. The second myth is thinking that debugging is a small part of programming. If you believe that, then it makes you feel like you've done something wrong when your program doesn't work right away. It's never happened in my life to write a piece of code, try to run it, and it works right away. In general, the longer you write code without debugging it, the longer and the more painful it will be to debug it. In reality, when we're programming, the architecture is done so that we can test the program as often as possible. Because it's a way to gradually build on things that we know work because we tested it and we debugged it, and then we know it works. And if we add a little bit of code, then if there is a problem, then we know that the problem is from that little piece of code that we just added because the rest of it has already been tested. Debugging is actually part and parcel of the process of constructing the program. It is a huge part of programming. This is one of the things that is not talked about enough. The reason for this is, as a general rule, anything with the goal of having an absence of something seems intangible and is definitely not eye-catching or conspicuous enough for people to want to talk about it. That's actually one of the main reasons why most undervalued skills are more about what not to do than about what to do. Constantly thinking about testing the program while writing the code is a prime example of that kind of skill. Third myth, cleaning up code is a waste of time. I think this belief stems from the way we learn programming, being from books, videos, or lectures. What's presented is either already clean or clean enough. And so the part where the code is cleaned up is never part of the work that is presented. It's actually not a bad thing to have the code being clean when it's presented to us. It's even a good sign. That means the person presenting worked on it and know what they're talking about. The problem is that it tends to make us think that it happened naturally or that there is no work involved. But in the real world, people have to constantly think about it while coding. It is very similar to testing. If we think that we won't get lost and overwhelmed by our code and get away with it, if we don't constantly think about making it clean, here's what's going to happen. There will be pieces of code that we won't know why they are there or what they are for. We'll have endless files that are way bigger than our screen, which is a big red flag in terms of architecture. We'll have several times the same piece of code in either the same file or in different files, but in the same project. We'll have useless lines of code which impedes the readability of the code. Basically, the whole project will become a nightmare, not just to debug it, but also to work on. Because we'll know that it's already difficult to work with, and we need to keep adding things to it, really? I mean, no wonder people think that programming is difficult and give up. I would give up too at this point. Now, let's just agree, hypothetically, with that myth. And let's say that cleaning up your code is a waste of time. Now, let's ask ourselves, is it worth saving our time by not cleaning up the code if we end up giving up the whole project? Fourth myth, learning commands that we don't need right now might be useful in the future. This one is just wrong. Unless we're extremely lucky, it won't be. It won't be useful in the future. Depending on what type of things we're doing, we are not going to need most of the commands that are being taught. And even if it is, it'll be so far into the future that we'll have forgotten about it anyway. So the proper order is needing something right now and then learning the commands, instead of learning the commands and then try to find problems that those commands can solve. This issue is similar to thinking that if we know how to solve a problem, then everything else is a different version of this problem. This is a Procrustean bed of sorts. In mythology, Procrustes used to stretch or chop off the legs of the travelers he was inviting into his house to make them fit into his bed. The Procrustean bed metaphor is about the common mistake of adjusting the wrong variable, namely adjusting the problem to your knowledge instead of adjusting your knowledge to the problem. In this case, starting with the problem is one of the best ways to avoid making that mistake. Now that you know about the 4 programming myths, you might want to start learning programming. What if you don't have time for it? I'll talk about this in the next video. We're already at the end of this video. If you want to learn more, click on the link in the description. You'll get a free online course. Have a great day and see you in the next video.